I grew into being able to manage a $55 million business. I decided 13 years in that I wanted to probably stay for 20 years. And I thought that was a good long run as a CEO. We then seriously started talking about it and planning it at 15 years.
Okay.
When you decide you're going to sell your business, you have to find a buyer that aligns with what the business is. Keep a list of who your lifelines are, who's your attorney, a business broker, and then figure out if their skill sets align with selling a business. You should know what kind of exit strategy options there are. And I didn't know anything when I started this process. I mean, I had to figure out what is a private equity company and how do they work? If I've built this business to this size, is it going to be viable to find an outside buyer? Basically figure out what your options are.
Welcome to the Grit Blueprint Podcast. I'm your host, Stephanie Couch. This is the spot where leaders talk about the stories, strategies, and systems that win in the building industry. We unpack how leaders and brands build their reputations and become unmistakable. Welcome to the Grit Blueprint Podcast. I am your host, Stephanie Couch. I am coming to you live from the floor at the Denver market of Do It Best and True Value. I'm here with Gina Schaefer. Welcome to the show, Gina.
Hi.
This is your third podcast with me, maybe?
Maybe. Yeah.
We're making a habit of this.
Yeah, we're good.
And I love interviewing you because I just love you. But today we're going to take a different spin on topics. We're going to talk about something you know a lot about and a lot of people are thinking about in their businesses, exiting and succession planning.
Yep.
You actually just spoke at the market about this topic. So we're going to kind of keep this a little bit more narrowed down. I feel like we could talk, for hours, but I do want to start with a fun question. So you've been traveling like crazy. You just came back from a whirlwind trip. What's your best wild travel story from one of your recent trips?
Oh my gosh, you didn't ask me to prepare for that one. My best wild travel story. I have a fun travel story that was in the wild, if that helps. I was on a treadmill on a cruise ship in Antarctica, and we hit a lot of rockiness. And so I had to hold on really, really tight. Now, I don't know if that's what you were going for, but the cool part about that experience is that there were whales jumping. It was a glass. The gym was glass, and there were whales jumping outside. So there was a lot of wild going on in that scenario. And I was exercising. Go figure.
I was going to say, you do like to walk, though. You just usually do it in the city. So the treadmill part threw me for a loop. I love any story that involves animals. You know that. So I like that story. All right. You have a chain of hardware stores for maybe someone listening. Tell us a little bit about a few cool hardware stores and just give me a snippet of your background because I want people to understand the context of how big of a business you built and what type of business there is now. And it started with one store.
Started with one store, 2003, in a neighborhood called Logan Circle in Washington, D.C. I opened my second location in 2005 and then one a year for 10 years after that. Adding, subtracting. My husband joined me as my business partner. We have purchased 5 stores. We're going to talk about succession planning. We were actually the succession plan for 5 store owners.
Wow.
So that's a really cool perspective. We've built 11 from scratch. We've closed 2 that didn't work. We have 300 amazing teammates. Some of them are co-owners now, which I think will also come up. About $55 million in revenue, which is amazing. A pretty good size for a small business.
Yeah, I'd say pretty good size. Double nickels is your number this year.
Yeah. Why did I not put that together? I turned 55 this year. I'm big on the double nickels. Thanks, Stephanie. Yeah, we're in D.C., Washington, D.C., Maryland, and Virginia.
Amazing. Well, there's very few people in the world that ever build a business that's over $1 million, actually. And to get to 10 million is even more rare. And to get to 55 million, well, you are one of a kind, my dear.
Thank you.
So I love your perspective, and you've been a great mentor in my business so far, just a dear friend. I want to ask you a question about, you opened your first hardware store in 2003, Logan Circle. Now you've got 15 hardware stores, 55 million, and you're no longer the CEO, and you've sold this to your employees.
Yep.
Was there a moment in your business where you're like, holy cow, you looked around and this is something, a whole different animal than what you started? Where was that moment? Or was it just so gradual that you just didn't really realize it?
I talked about this in my workshop today because when you decide you're going to sell your business, you have to find a buyer that aligns with what the business is. And when I opened, the first year, we had like 12 teammates. We did $650,000 in revenue. And I think what you're insinuating is, yeah, it was gradual. I grew into being able to manage a $55 million business. I do remember some inflection points, like at 25 million, my husband and I sitting down, actively talking about whether we could get to 30 and then 35. And he's like, why can't we get to 50? I was like, we can get to 50.
Yeah.
So there were inflection points along the way.
Yeah.
Yeah.
You just turned around.
And then all of a sudden you're like, holy cow, we're big.
I'm waiting on it. I'm waiting on the turnaround to be so holy cow.
You're going to get there.
You also have had a lot of experience, like you said, 5 stores that you were the succession plan for someone else. One of them was Frager's in Capitol Hill. 100-year history in that store. So a real legacy. It wasn't just another location. What made you say yes to taking that on? And once you said yes, was it what you expected? Was it harder than expected? Because that legacy piece is a real interesting thing.
Yeah, the Frager's name was built into the seller's contract. He wanted me, which we happily did, to pay for it and to keep the name as part of the legacy. He was not from the Frager's family, but he had been the owner for like 40 years. And that was very important to him. And we gladly said yes.
Yeah.
And so I think when you think about buyer-seller alignment, that kind of legacy play comes in. I handwrote him a anniversary card when he had been an owner of the business for like 30 years. And I said, when we grow up, we want to be Frager's Hardware. And I signed it from my staff, our team. And he kept that handwritten note. So when he was ready to sell, he called me and he said, we've never met. I had never met him in person.
Wow.
He said, I still have that note. Will you buy my store?
How long was that between you writing and him selling?
It might have been 7 years.
Wow.
Oh, it was at least 7 years, Stephanie. It was actually, I probably wrote the note in 2004, 2005, and we bought the store in 17.
I know we're talking about succession planning, but you write handwritten notes a lot. I do the same thing. I really just cherish the notes you send me. What made you want to do that for him? And what was like the thought in your brain? And what did you expect out of it? Maybe it was nothing. Tell me about that.
I didn't expect anything at all. Although it is fun when you get a thank you note for a thank you note.
Yeah.
That store was a member of a different co-op. And I believe co-ops, there's principles that govern co-ops, and principle number 6 is cooperation among co-ops. And I just wanted to know him as a member of another cooperative. But what it's like when you're building a business and you're growing and you're wearing all the hats and you're exhausted.
Yeah.
I didn't have time to go meet him.
Right.
And it didn't matter. I put my words, my sentiments out into the universe, and a decade later or whatever, they came back to me.
So cool.
Shocking. Yeah.
What did you think when he called you?
Well, I'll tell you, my husband was in the room and I hung up the phone and he said, you've got the worst poker face ever. If somebody wants to sell you their business, you need to play it cool. I was so excited. John was like, his name was John. He said, do you want to buy Frager's? And I was like, absolutely.
Mark's like, you didn't even take a breath.
Oh, no. He's like, calm down. Which so I feel like you could probably relate to.
Yeah.
Right?
It sounds vaguely familiar. Yeah. I might be half excited about things.
Maybe. It took about 2 years to make the deal happen after that. So I didn't say yes and then done deal. It took about 2 years, but I was thrilled to be asked. Yeah.
Let's talk about the 2 years.
Yeah.
So what happened between, hey, do you want to buy the business? I own the business.
Yeah. We basically did it on a handshake deal. And once we shook hands and agreed, John wanted to make sure that all of his ducks were in a row. And that meant making sure that the legal documents were fine. Frager's had burned down a couple years prior and it was operating in a temporary location. And he was negotiating a deal. He had owned the property that had burned. And so he was negotiating a deal to sell the property. And part of that negotiation was the new owner being required to put a hardware store in. Thank goodness, because it would have been so expensive to lease in that space. And so he needed to line a lot of stuff up.
Okay.
Yeah.
Very cool.
Yeah.
Well, I'm currently scaling my business. Ben and I are 3.5 years in.
Nice.
You've been with me pretty much through the last 2 years of it.
Yeah.
You were a client of ours and still are, and we've been friends. What advice do you have for Ben and I as we continue to build, like maybe year 3 to 5? What would you tell us?
Well, I would say one thing that I've already seen you do that I'm really impressed with is adding to your team. One of the pitfalls of business ownership, leadership is trying to do everything. And I think when you start a business, you have to. You can't afford to hire somebody.
Yeah.
You make a bad hire to start with because you have to kick a lot of tires. And I've been really impressed with the way you've been adding to your team. Now, I might get a visual that, the behind the scenes look might be very different, but for me, that's what I see that you're doing.
I definitely hope we can continue. We've got some great team members for sure, and it has made an exponential difference in allowing me to do the things I really want to do, but also what I feel like I'm the best at. And even Ben, he loves doing media and some of the things that he really likes doing and is very good at. They allow us to do this, so that's a big unlock.
It's nice when you can use your skill set. And you can be surrounded by people who want to do the things that you don't want to do, and they love it, right? The very first teammate that we promoted, she was a sales associate in our housewares and lawn and garden department. And the store was teeny tiny, but, she had a big role. And we wanted a buyer. We wanted to afford an official buyer.
Yeah.
And we raised our key prices by like 10 cents because we sold so many keys that we knew we could afford to give her an actual salary with a 10-cent raise on keys. And so we got really creative to try and figure out how we were going to actually pay for her.
How many keys did you sell to get?
Oh my God.
10 cents each raised.
Thousands of keys.
Wow.
Thousands and thousands and thousands of keys. Now she was, we needed to bridge the gap between what she was already making, but yeah.
I love that creative thinking on that. Very smart. All right. You talked about people starting their exit strategy, but most people start it way too late.
Yep.
You have a principle that they should start it when they open their store or when they're, starting the business, which I think is a little bit of a pipe dream. Like it's pretty hard because you're just trying to survive. Like you're dreaming of that massive exit strategy, but it seems so far away. What point did you and Mark really sit down and start thinking about like, do we want to sell? How do we want to sell? How many years out are we from this? Like, when did you really start thinking about that?
I started talking about it after 13 years. I had decided in 13 years in that I wanted to probably stay for 20 years. And I thought that was a good long run as a CEO. We then seriously started talking about it and planning it at 15 years.
Okay.
Yeah. When I gave the conversation, the workshop this morning, one of the practical things, because I don't think it's realistic to do it from the beginning. I mean, we're not tech startups that we're going to try to unicorn and exit in 2 years. You're building a life and a brand and a legacy for yourself. You can't do that overnight. But one of the things that I did suggest that is extremely practical is keep a list of who your lifelines are, who's your attorney, a business broker. You're going to have an accountant and CPA, but some of these other folks that you can call on. And then figure out if their skill sets align with selling a business. You might have the best attorney in the world for a slip and fall, but they might not be able to help you sell a business.
Yeah.
So fill that blank on your sheet. And then, do you like that person?
Yeah.
Do you trust that person? Do you have an accountant who's constantly doing creative accounting? Maybe you're helping them or letting them. But when you go to sell your business, you don't want creative accounting. You want the cold, hard facts, the right ones, right? And so I think those are things you can do from the beginning that really don't have a lot to do with planning the exit. It's just kind of prep work.
Where do you find a good attorney, banker, insert context here? Where do you find those people if you don't have one? Like you have the great accountant that does your taxes every year and keeps you from a slip and fall on the attorney side.
Right.
But where do you find these people? How do you know you can trust them?
You kick a lot of tires, you ask a lot of questions. You can't be afraid to talk about what's going on in your business, meaning you have to tell people what you need or they don't know.
Yeah.
Many people, regardless of how small the community is that you live in, for example, belong to a chamber of commerce. That's a resource. Have a banker. That's a resource. Should at some point in their life start working with a certified financial planner. That's a resource. And all of those people might give you a referral that it's not the final answer, but it gives you someone to interview.
Yeah, have a network.
Don't take the first referral.
I love that.
Yeah.
This episode of the Grit Blueprint podcast was sponsored by Do It Best Group. Do It Best Group is the largest co-op in the world, and they help independent hardware and lumber yards all over North America win. Do It Best offers services, products, and people that can help you win long term. They are the champion of independence. Well, you had a lot of options, and there are so many different ways to sell a business, to exit a business. A lot of people have family that takes over. There's private equity.
Yep.
There's selling it just to an individual or maybe a few individuals, all traditional routes. But we both talk a lot about the ESOP model. I love this model because you have people who are already invested in the business as people who work there. who actually purchase the business. But it's kind of complicated if you've never heard of it before. It's like, well, how does an hourly employee that maybe is making, $50 to $100,000 a year, they don't have millions of dollars to give you. And I've heard a lot of people say that, well, I don't want to give away my business, and that feels like giving away my business. So talk a little bit about how you decided that ESOP was the option. And I know you had a visit to a brewery that spurred that on.
So I was in Fort Collins, Colorado at the New Belgium Brewery, which was an ESOP at the time. It's since sold to private equity, but I had a tour guide who was like 22, and she was bouncing off the wall, so excited to tell those of us on the tour that she owned the brewery. And I remember thinking, there's something that I'm not getting. Like, she never mentioned an ESOP. She just kept talking about how she was an owner. And we didn't want to interrupt the tour to ask non-beer questions. And so we went back to our hotel that night, and we did a little research, and we realized that they were an ESOP. In the meantime, randomly, I was on a virtual panel with a gentleman who's very, very experienced in ESOPs. And I called him and I said, I just don't understand how this young woman became an owner of the brewery. Walk me through the process. And the very first thing he said was, employees don't put in any money. And honestly, Stephanie, that was it. I was like, that's like the one key piece I needed, because I knew I wanted my legacy to be somehow related to this employee ownership, community ownership. I love the co-op model. What does that look like? Could that look like for us? And once I found that out, we were off and running.
Okay. So technical question. I have no money. You want money for the business you've built. How the hell does that work?
Yeah. So I like to think of it as a big circle. I went to the bank and I got a loan. $55 million business. Let's say it was valued at $25 million. I went to the bank. The bank gave us a loan, which we then loaned to the business to pay us out.
Yep.
And so the business is paying back that loan.
Okay.
We sold 30% to start because it would have been too big of a nut for the business to handle.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
Yeah. And how do people eventually, do they ever give you any money? How does that work for the person? Like on the floor selling paint, how do they become an owner?
So you create a trust, and the trust owns the business on behalf of the employees. It's really like a 401k, like a qualified retirement account. So if you go to a company and you're working for a 401k, there are qualifications for you to join. So to join our ESOP, to become an owner, you have to work with us for a year, and you have to have worked 1,000 hours. And then you are automatically an owner, unless you're under 21. We have an age limit. You hit that milestone, and you get a letter from the CEO saying, welcome to the ownership team on this company, and you are an owner.
And what kind of rights do they have?
So they have rights to the value of the shares. It doesn't change their management status. It doesn't change their day-to-day pay. Unlike the stock market, ESOPs get valued once a year. You pay for a professional valuation, and the value of the stock determines how much the employees get into their account, like a 401k, essentially. And it stays that value until the next year. So if it's valued at $5 a share in 2025, 2026 could be up or down. I mean, it's a whole different ball game. You cannot be an owner in an ESOP if you don't work there. So if you are terminated or you quit or retire, we have to buy you out.
Okay.
And you get that money from your ESOP bucket, and hopefully you roll it into another qualified retirement plan so that you can continue to build equity and generational wealth wherever you go.
And they cannot draw from it until when?
Well, they can take it with penalties, like a 401k when they leave. Yeah. To date, in the last 3.5 years, we have paid out over $3 million to our teammates who have left. Yeah, which is a big deal for us. And it's life-changing for some people. I want it to go into a retirement account.
Yeah.
But if it doesn't, people have used it to pay off educational loans or buy a house. Those are possibilities.
And is it like a 401k where if someone's still working there, that the idea is that hopefully they don't take it until they leave and retire?
Correct. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah.
Well, that makes sense.
Yeah.
It's definitely a good option. What do you think is one of the best things that maybe people would miss about this as a succession plan option? Like, why do more people not do this?
Well, I can answer that in a couple different ways. If you go a traditional brokerage route, you hire a business broker to help make a marriage for you, that broker doesn't make a commission on an ESOP. And so even if they know about it, it's not in their best interest to tell you about it. Now, this is not to disparage brokers, because I think when you are creating your exit strategy, when you're doing the research, you need to look at all the options.
Yeah.
But a broker won't make a commission on it. And so they might not tell you about it.
So if you need someone to help you with this ESOP model, but obviously a business broker may not be the person to do that, then who would you go to?
Yeah. There are some really amazing resources. There's one called the EOXN Network. It was started by a man named Steve Storkin, who has created centers, state centers. I think these up to like 14 states now. Wow. Their sole mission as a nonprofit is to educate business owners on ESOPs. They will give you all of the free resources you need. It's fantastic. I gave a keynote at the one in Ohio. I'm getting ready to give the keynote at one in Alabama. Really great resources. There's also 2 big ESOP associations, the National Center of Employee Ownership. They do fantastic conferences. They bring in service providers. You can interview them on the spot. That's where we found our consultant. It's where we found our trustee. And then there's an ESOP association. Same thing.
And these resources can help you with each step of the way. And then there's obviously financing and things like that. When I spoke at the ESOP association, there was banks and CPAs and everybody that really knows this. So find someone that knows that world. Correct. Because that'll help you, I'm sure, on the right path.
Well, this goes back to creating your lifeline list. Not everybody's bank understands ESOPs. Not everybody's bank understands co-ops. When we started banking with National Cooperative Bank, it's because they really understood co-ops. And then fast forward, we found out, not only do they understand ESOPs, but they love it. And they were completely happy to fund our exit.
We're here at Do It Best True Value, which is the largest co-op in the world. What is the value of a co-op? Why do you love them so much?
Well, I mean, I love the shared resources. I love the services that the co-op provides to the members. I love the camaraderie among the members. And maybe the most personal for me is that I love small businesses, and I love beautiful main streets that are vibrant with small family-owned businesses and legacies and co-ops, particularly hardware stores. I mean, that's our stomping ground.
Yeah. It's a beautiful thing.
It is.
There's nothing that makes me happier than a hardware show. I've been coming to them since I was very little. And I'm looking around right now. There's some little girls out there that, aren't much bigger than I was when I was there first time. It's a beautiful thing. And it is kind of America. Like, it's that American dream. It's a really, really amazing thing. And co-ops like this allow that, I think, to continue where they can compete without having to have 20 stores or 50 stores to do business. They can be a one store,
powerhouse
street and just kill it.
Yep.
Yeah,
exactly.
Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, I want to talk about what you've said a lot of times could have been the scariest part of Succession was finding your successor. So you had an amazing role. You're an inspirational leader. You had a lot of people that worked for you for a long time, were selling the business. Everything's going to be different because Gina's not going to be there every day. How do you fill those shoes, and what did you do to go about that?
I got so lucky. I mean, I always say that nothing is luck. You have to really put in the hard work. But for me, it was the relationship building and a relationship that I had built with another hardware store owner. And it was kind of like, what's it called? Like your holy grail. Like, I took him to lunch and I said, what do you think about becoming the CEO to replace me? And he could have said anything. Like, I don't know what I would have done if he had said no. And I remember the look on his face. He was like, wow. Like, he was shocked. He said, I'll think about it. And he called a couple days later and he said, I don't need to think anymore. I think it would be great. Now, that all sounds fine and dandy and it was perfect for me, but for my team, and I think you need to have a lot of alignment between the buyer and the seller and all your constituents. And my team knew him. He was a single store, so he didn't have 3 buyers. He didn't have an inventory professional on his team. He didn't have an HR. He had people that could dabble in that kind of stuff for him, but he wore a lot of hats.
Yeah.
But he knew my team because if he needed HR advice, he called my HR manager. So they knew and they liked him. That was the important part. He wasn't this nameless, faceless, coming from the outside. That was really meaniful.
Yeah, that's a big deal. I don't know how many people could replicate that. But tell me a little more about him. So his family had a business.
Yeah.
And he was a legacy of that business in that one store.
Yeah. The family has owned, I think, 4 stores. One of them we purchased.
Okay.
So we purchased one of their stores when they wanted to sell it. So, and he's like you. I mean, he grew up in the business. He started working at his dad's hardware store when he was like 11. So he knew hardware really, really well.
Yeah, I'm sure that made the transition
And
easier.
he also always really wanted to be part of a bigger organization. And he hadn't grown yet. So this was an opportunity to really be able to do that.
Yeah.
Yeah.
What was the hardest part of handing over the reins?
I lost my office. That's like the silliest answer, but I really just like working from home. We have a very small office space. So now he has my custom made, really cool desk. So that's kind of a silly answer. The hardest part for me was leaving the people.
Yeah.
Hands down. I mean,
I've been to one of your stores and it's such a great energy and it's a fun place. I actually got to ring up some customers.
Yeah.
It's super fun. You do have a great team. Well, for the owners in the room who feel like they're years away from this, maybe they're thinking about it a little bit or it's like the last thing on their mind.
Yep.
What are 2 or 3 things that you would say, like, just start doing this now? You mentioned finding the people, the banker, the lawyer, what's 1 or 2 other things that you might say, like, think about it now?
Well, I think you should know what kind of exit strategy options there are. And I didn't know anything when I started this process. So I mean, I had to figure out, like, what is a private equity company and how do they work? If I've built this business to this size, is it going to be viable to find an outside buyer? Basically figure out what your options are.
Yeah.
And today I shared pros and cons of what some of those big options are. So start there. Create that lifeline list and look at it once a year. If you're 15 years out, you think your banker might change in 15 years. Your attorney might change in 15 years. And then the third thing that I suggested, there were 3 buckets that I think also need to align. And it's your numbers, your visuals, and your humans. So the numbers, if you've been doing creative accounting, you got to figure that out. Start doing it right. Visuals, I mean, you've all seen this happen over and over again. You get tired.
Yeah.
Or you get complacent. You don't want to renovate. You don't want to go through the hassle of a reno in your store in the plumbing department. And the next thing you know, you've got old inventory, low margins, outdated software. And so make a commitment to keep that stuff top of mind. You don't have to do a renovation every year. But like, I have a peer group and they come in and they tell us where our warts are. Like, they cried. I cried the first time they came in.
Yeah.
Because they were like, this is what stinks and this is unattractive. I was already making a lot of money. Like, I could tell them what I was doing well. I needed an outside set of eyes to tell me where I sucked.
Where did you find that group?
Well, they were an ACE peer group. Okay. And so the ACE co-op has a group called the Progressive ACE Leaders. It's the youngins coming up in the business. And when we aged out at around 40, 6 of the other retailers and my husband and I formed our own group so that we could keep getting better.
Okay. So you just a group of other people who aren't in your store every day seeing the same thing that you see. That's a great idea.
Yeah.
And I think it is important for business owners to talk to each other because you are in your little bubble. You miss things that are big opportunities and also big things that are hurting your business. That's a really great tip.
Yeah. One of the things, if you don't mind if I interrupt, it's kind of like when you buy a house and you don't repaint the kitchen before people come in and buy the house. Buyers don't want to visualize. They don't want to use their imagination. So to the extent that you can eliminate the imagination part, you might get more money. Your business might be worth more.
Yeah.
Frager's, when I bought it, John was so smart. He was tired. He was ready to retire, but he knew it was going to cost $1 million to move that business back to the old space. He discounted the cost of his business by $1 million.
Because he knew.
He took all that imagination out.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Very wise advice.
Yeah.
And I think for people who are not inventive, they don't know what needs to be done, ask for help. The co-ops are a great opportunity because they have all these people that's all they do.
That's it.
And they see stores all over the U.S. so they can give you some ideas and help you do it. It's a pain in the butt, but it's worth it.
It's
like
worth
you
it.
said, you either pay now or you pay later.
Right.
Discount it later, I guess.
Yep.
All right. Are you ready for the lightning round?
I think so.
All right. What's the most overrated tourist place you've ever been to?
This was such an easy answer for me. I think that Rome, somebody's going to get mad at me. Rome is so full of overrated tourist spots. The Trevi Fountain, the Spanish Steps. There is nothing. I love Rome. There's nothing attractive about the Spanish Steps. So I'm going to stop there before I keep babbling. Those are it.
Okay. The best meal that you've had in the last year, what was it and where was it? So you can say dinner with me last night.
Dinner with you last night was awesome. That burrata. No, I just got back from a 7-country tour in Asia. And I had this bowl of soup called laksa when I got to Singapore that blew my mind. I had never had it before. It has a coconut base. It had some tofu in it. It had the right amount of spice. And I'm pretty sure I had it at breakfast. It was incredible.
Okay. For those of you out there, if you're in Singapore, check it out. What is the most spontaneous thing you've ever said yes to?
There's got to be more than one, but the first thing that came to mind is I drove across country with a friend I had already started it must have been 20 years ago. But here's the funny part. I don't drive. I can drive. I have a driver's license. I'm a good driver. But we were out at a bar and she said, I'm moving to LA and I need someone to drive with me. And I was like, I'll go. And then I woke up sober the next morning and I called her and I said, do you want to find someone who's actually willing to drive with you? This is funny because I always say that I stopped driving 12 years ago, but it's been longer.
Wow.
So that was
Not
spontaneous.
For long. You're going to be driving again soon.
Maybe. But that was really spontaneous. It was so much fun. She didn't care that I wasn't driving. I was the entertainer.
Imagine that. All right. If you could live in any city in the world for 1 month, where would it be?
I can't answer that because there's so many. I want to live in Tokyo so desperately. I love Brazil, so I would live in Rio.
Tokyo is the first thing you said.
Tokyo is the first thing I
said. That's your gut instinct.
Right now it's Tokyo.
All right. Fill in the blank. Grit is blank.
Oh, grit is life. It's how we go through life. It's what determines whether we're going to be lucky or successful or happy.
All right. I've got 2 final questions.
Okay.
They're not lightning rounds. They're regular questions.
Okay, good.
What's the thing you're most excited about right now that has nothing to do with the other part of your business? Because I know you have a lot of really cool things going on.
I'm working with a new nonprofit based in Salt Lake City, Utah that I am most excited about. Like it really became a passion project for me. And I feel like it's been almost 3 years since I retired and I was looking for something like that.
What is it?
It's called Rasa Legal. It was started by a young attorney after she graduated from law school to help expunge people's records. You know, we have an employment issue in this country. We have hundreds of thousands of people. In fact, it's many millions that have a criminal record that they shouldn't have anymore. And it impedes employment. And so she helps expunge their records.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
All right. You built a $55 million business. You wrote a book. You've done a million other things that are so cool. When you look back so far, 55 years in, 55 million and 55 years in, what are you most proud of that has nothing to do with money?
All right, this is the first thing that came to mind. This is kind of like a lightning round, as a matter of fact. With no prep, I hired a very green, young, former foster child years ago, and I am still friends with that person. We text on a daily basis. He doesn't work for me anymore. But I love him dearly, and I'm very proud of the relationships that I've built long-term with a lot of people that I might have never met.
Yeah, you're a hallmark relationship builder.
Oh, thank you.
I cherish the relationship that we've built. And
thank you.
We are actually getting to see each other twice in one 30-day span. So who knows? We might be doing this again in a month in Vegas. Maybe at the casino table.
Let's do it.
Do they let you film podcasts while playing blackjack?
No cameras.
It's spoken like a person who doesn't gamble, because I don't know.
I do.
You do. Maybe I'll just be your lucky charm.
Okay.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. I hope that if you have questions about Succession or you're not thinking about it, that maybe this just spurred one little idea for you, because I wish really that, my family business had have thought of some things before we were ready to exit. And we could have been maybe a little bit more prepared for what was coming. I know as a daughter of a legacy business, I wish I was more educated, and I think that I could have been. So thank you for joining me on the podcast, and I'm always excited to talk to you. And I hope you have a great market. It's exciting. There's buzz everywhere and people everywhere. So go enjoy the show.
Thank you. I'm going to.
And we will see you on the next episode of The Grit Blueprint. Thank you for listening to the Grit Blueprint podcast. If this episode helped you think a little differently about how to show up, share it with someone in your building world who needs it. If you're ready to turn visibility into growth, then head to gritblueprint.com to learn more and book a call to talk to us about your growth strategy. Until next time, stay unmistakable.